Welcome back to another video, everybody. You're joining us as we are heading down from Darwin and down towards Broome. We're going to start off with the van drama and then onto the fun bits afterwards. So, as you'll have seen, our air conditioning was leaking like crazy. We pretty much were having Niagara Falls in our passenger footwell, and luckily we had some bath towels. So the bath towels, we were having to wring them out like literally every couple of hours, and we had about 3 of them, so there was a lot of water coming out, but thank goodness the air conditioning was working even if we did have Niagara Falls, and thank goodness the van does not have carpeted floors because they would be destroyed otherwise. But anyway, we made it to Broome and we spent a couple of nights there in a hostel, and it was just still so hot. Like, we were just really struggling with the heat. So we decided, do you know what, we're going to head down south. We're going to not stop at too many places. We're going to still try and do Exmouth, Ningaloo, Coral Bay, Shark Bay, all that jazz, because that was places we wanted to go to, and then we would eventually end up in Perth, as was the plan. However, the world had other plans for us because we blew a tyre on our way to Port Hedland. Basically, we were driving, we were 3 hours from Port Hedland, literally in the middle of nowhere, hardly seen any other cars. And I was driving at the time, actually, driving along, and it just felt really weird. All of a sudden, heard this funny noise, looked in the mirror, and all I could see was our tyre, like, shredded halfway down the road. So that was fun. So we pulled over. Luckily, Myron knew how to change the tyre, thank goodness, because we had hardly any phone signal, and it was a Saturday as well, so I don't think anyone would have actually come out to help us because, again, we were in the middle of nowhere. So we managed to get the tyre changed. However, a lot of the tyres in Australia, they're like retreads, I think they're called, so they graft new rubber onto the old tyres, which I've not really seen before, but I think it's quite common with sort of vans and lorries, but with cars not so much, and I don't think you can really get them in the UK that much. So anyway, what had happened was this retread had just shredded off the tyre, but I do remember thinking as we were driving along that road that there was lots of bits of tyres all the way along the side of the road, and thinking, okay, is like this known for blowing people's tyres? Anyway, chatting to some people afterwards, apparently it is known for being a really bad road for shredding people's tyres. Apparently the rocks and things that they use in the tarmac are really coarse, and also it gets really hot, and that's just like the perfect combination to shred your tyres, apparently. So anyway, we managed to get it fixed. We put the spare tyre on. However, what we didn't realise was that the air pump that we have in the van, you can't use it on tyres. You can use it on airbeds, you can use it on things like that, but it didn't have a connector for a tyre. So our spare tyre was low, and so the next fuel stop was probably like a good, I don't know, hour or so's drive away. So we literally had to drive there at really low speeds, and when I say low speeds, I mean we were doing like 40 kilometres an hour on a 110 kilometre an hour road. So it took us quite a while to get there. Anyway, we got there, we pumped the tyre up, and we realised that the back tyre that had gone, not only had it like scratched all the paint on the side when it had gone, but that the one on the other side was also low as well. And we were like, oh no, okay. And also our spare was slightly damaged around the side, which as well we hadn't noticed when we'd previously looked at the spare. It was just worn on one side basically. So it wasn't looking good for us. So basically we were 3 hours away from Port Hedland on a Saturday. It was nearly lunchtime. We rang up all the garages that I could find in Port Hedland, and they were like, yeah, we don't have any tyres, we can order them in, it'll take like a week. And I was like, cool, great. We're gonna be stuck in 40-degree heat with no air conditioning in the van when we sleep for a week. I can't do this. So we ended up making the executive decision to literally just drive straight down to Perth and miss out Ningaloo, Exmouth, all of that, and just literally get to Perth, because we rang a few places in Perth and they could get us new tyres like there and then. They had them for the van. So we basically just had to take a risk, because we didn't know at what point this other back tyre was going to go, and we didn't know if the spare was going to hold, and we were about, I want to say we were probably about 24 hours away from Perth, maybe. So we were at least 2 days driving, if not 3, and that was driving all day. But what we decided to do was, because it was so hot, the heat on the tyres was making things worse. So we ended up basically getting up crazy early in the morning, like as soon as it got light at like 4 AM, driving probably till about 10, 11, and then stopping somewhere till sort of 4, 5, and then we'd drive from like 5 till 10 in the evening, camp up, and then get out again at 4 in the morning. So we did that for like 3 days in a row, and by some miracle we got to Perth in one piece, and we got the tyres changed, and we took it to the garage, and the guy was like, "You've been driving on these?" And we're like, "Mm-hmm." And he was like, "You need all 4 tyres changing," which, to be fair, I don't know why I was surprised, because we've literally just driven across half of Australia and we've done so many kilometres on them, and I think the people before us had done a little bit of driving on them as well. So yeah, thank goodness we made it in one piece, but my god, it was a little bit stressful with those tyres. We didn't know if we were going to make it, but made it to Perth in one piece, got all the tyres fixed. We also got the air conditioning fixed and discovered that basically the drain was really badly blocked, and they managed to remove 2 litres of water from the car. 2 litres, I mean, poor Henry, poor little van, because he'd been carrying around 2 litres of water inside him. But anyway, made it to Perth, and we've had a lot of adventures since we've been here. We've been doing lots of fun things, and so I thought I'd show you what we've been up to and give you a few recommendations of places that I feel like if you're coming to Perth, you definitely should go to, you should definitely see, and I hope you enjoy.
The Pinnacles Desert is about 2 hours away from Perth, and it's a truly fascinating and unique place. It's been on my bucket list since before I came out to Australia, as I saw it on a TV documentary in the UK, and it just really looked incredible. They're still not entirely sure what caused the pinnacles to be created, although there is a lot of theories. The site stands out as the sand in the surrounding areas is really white, whereas at the pinnacles itself, everything's really quite yellow in comparison. It's a fairly cheap place to visit. It was only $15 per vehicle to enter, which I think is pretty incredible. And there's also an information centre that has all sorts of interesting things, like it tells you about the plants of the area and about the geology and things like that. And there's a little shop and toilets and things, and then you have the option to drive around the pinnacles, get out and look, or you can actually walk around as well. So we did decide to drive, and it was perfectly fine in a normal car. We were just in a little Suzuki Swift, and the ground was well compacted underneath, so there was no chance of us sinking in or anything like that. But it was really fascinating wandering around, looking at all the different formations, because every single pinnacle is a different size, different shape. They are very fun, and it was fun trying to figure out what different things were, because everything looked like different shapes, so we enjoyed doing that. And we managed to get some really lovely photos as well from our time there, and we saw some kangaroos as well jumping across, which is always exciting. It's always fun to see kangaroos and things like that. As it was exposed, it did get warm very quickly, so we did try and arrive fairly early in the morning, and we probably stayed for about 2 hours before we headed back down to a place called Lancelin. And there's quite a few dunes there, and we grabbed some lunch, and then we had a go at doing some sandboarding. So it was really good, and you can actually go on motorbikes and do four-wheel driving and things like that as well. However, we just went for the sandboarding, as Mara and sister hadn't done that before, even though we had when we were over on the east coast. However, unfortunately, we did pick a very windy day, and the sand was just whipping up everywhere, and it was so strong that it was actually really quite hard to do the sandboarding because it was just blowing you back. And when I say that I was covered in sand afterwards, I really mean it. Like, I literally had a second skin of sand all attached to me, and at one point I had so much in my eyes I couldn't see for about 10 minutes. But it was really good fun, and I'm really glad we went. We headed down towards Margaret River, and it took us about roughly 3 hours to get down there. We did end up stopping for some breakfast on the way though, and we had a little drive around the Margaret River area, and then we did actually end up heading up towards a place called Injured Up Point. So this was slightly further north, and it was absolutely stunning. It was so beautiful. The sea was just all different shades of blue. You could see all down the coastline, the waves just crashing onto the rocks, and there was the most incredible rock pool there. It was very cool. There were some people swimming in it. You did have to sort of hike down all the rocks though to get there, so it was a little bit tricky. But yeah, there was people swimming in it, and I was going to go in, however it was so cold, like it was really windy, really cold, and we were going on to quite a few other places afterwards, so I just decided that I wasn't going to go for a swim. But it was so beautiful. We must have stayed there for quite a while, just looking at the scenery, exploring, having a little wander. But it really is one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to, and if you know me, I love a good rock as well, so I was really enjoying clambering on all the rocks and everything. And we saw some cute little creatures as well. There was a little lizard, but he was really cute as well. From there we got back in the car and headed a little bit further up the coast to a place called Canal Rocks, and again, so beautiful. It was really nice seeing all the waves crashing on the rocks and everything, and it's supposed to be really good for snorkeling around there. Now Myron and his sister did go snorkeling, however again I just stayed in the car because it was quite cold. After that we went to Sugarloaf Rock to look at the scenery around there, and that was beautiful. The water was glittering, and again it was quite windy but really beautiful to go to. And then we went on to Shelley Cove Lookout and had a little wander on the beach, had a paddle in the water, and then headed home. We decided to travel to Rottnest Island from Hillary's, and we got the ferry across there. It didn't take very long at all, and actually before we got on the ferry we picked up some bikes because we'd hired these as part of the package. So we had our bikes and we're ready to go, and we stopped off to get some snacks, and we got to see the quokkas, and they were so cute, and one tried to jump up on my lap at one point. But after that we got cycling, and these were the views the whole way around the island. It was just so stunning. I've never seen anything like it, just the colours of the water, all the different reefs and everything, and the whole time it was just pure bliss. And there's hardly any cars on the island either, pretty much everybody cycles all the way around, so it felt really safe when we were there. You can also get on a bus as well, and I don't think it was that expensive, so maybe another time we do that, because as you can see I'm wearing a jumper and I went from being cold to hot to cold, but we had the best time. And we did go do some snorkeling just off the coast here, and the water was crystal clear. I've not swum in water this clear whilst we've been in Australia. You could literally see everything. It was so beautiful, and there was little fish. The only thing I would say is it was very cold. Like getting out I had goosebumps, and it took me quite a while to warm up, but it was really stunning, really beautiful, and I'd definitely love to go back there again. And you can also stay over on the island, and I think I'd maybe like to do that because I did feel like we just didn't have enough time to see everything without rushing around the whole time. And the other thing was that I forgot to put sun cream on my hands when we were cycling on the bike, so I burnt my hands really badly. Even though the rest of me was fine, it was just my hands that I burnt. But definitely if you are in the Perth area you need to go to Rottnest Island. It's just out of this world. It literally feels like you're in the Maldives or somewhere. The next place we visited was Penguin Island, which really wasn't that far away. Again, we did have to get a little ferry across, but it probably took about 5 minutes to get from the mainland across to the island itself, and it was really beautiful. I feel like I'm saying this a lot in this video, but the water on the west coast is just stunning. You just get the most incredibly blue colours, and it's all glittering and everything, and this was the beach when we arrived. So we'd actually booked on for a tour, and we were given this tour by a local guide, and they explained all about the island and the different birds that were on there. So it was the pelicans, the seagulls, and these little houses are actually the nesting boxes for the penguins. So they have little penguins on the island, and they also happen to have some visiting seals that day. So apparently there's Seal Island nearby, and sometimes they get banished from their island for being naughty, and so they come out and hang out on Penguin Island for the day, so you can just see them rolling around in the distance. But we saw the pelicans breeding and sitting on their nests, and the seagulls as well. However, unfortunately we didn't actually get to see any penguins, just because apparently in the daytime, because they need to eat so much fish, they all go out quite far into the ocean and they go hunting for fish out there. So we didn't actually see any on the island, but apparently in the evenings and early in the mornings the island is full of little penguins, and they are all nesting in these boxes, which help them to regulate their temperature, because unfortunately with the rising temperatures and things they've been struggling on their own. so they actually hide under the boardwalks and in these nesting boxes just to keep themselves nice and cool. My final recommendation of places to go around Perth is to go to Yanchep National Park. It's really not that far, and you also have Yanchep Lagoon just next to it. The park is really gorgeous. It's very green, and they have koalas there that you can go and see, and they're so cute. They're just asleep in the trees. And if you are there sort of later in the day or early in the morning, there's so many kangaroos, and they all had little joeys, which was adorable. This was the first time we'd seen the joeys, but yeah, as you can see, there was just kangaroos absolutely everywhere, which was very exciting. And they also have some caves as well, so there's lots of caves there, and you can go on a tour into the caves, and this is really interesting, and there's a guide and they tell you all about the caves. And actually the bit that you get to see is only just a small part. There's actually so much more that you can go and see, and they do have tour guides that will take you to those parts as well. Highly recommend going here if you're in the Perth area.